Welcome everyone to this second webinar as part of the Tees Valley Trailblazers competition. We hope you all managed to watch the launch last week by Katie Bulmer-Cook and are all fired up and ready to start your own businesses. But what does that business look like? What are you going to sell? Is it a product that you might make like cakes or biscuits? Or is it a service that you're going to offer like car washing, for example? Well, here to help you make that decision are two people who know quite a lot about businesses. So this afternoon, we have Chris Jones and Terry McStea, who are both business advisors for a Northeast company called RTC North. They help people in the Northeast set up their businesses and offer support and guidance along the way. Chris has also set up lots of businesses himself, so he has experienced what it's like firsthand to run his own business and the pitfalls and the excitement that that brings. He also loves anything to do with space, so you can see in his background there. Terry works with businesses, helping them to come up with new ideas. He loved science at school, particularly physics, which meant that he could play with lasers and actually get paid to do it. How fab is that? He also loves playing with Lego, even now. So don't forget, you can ask Chris and Terry a question by using the chat facility. Please only use this for questions for our speakers and not just general conversation between yourselves. So without further ado, over to you, Terry.
Thanks, Claire, and thank you for making it sound like my whole career is just playing with stuff. It is, but you didn't have to tell everyone. So, welcome everyone. Lovely to see you, even though I can't see you, but hopefully you can see me. So the topic today is one big idea. And the thing I'm going to tell you is there's no such thing as one big idea. I know you're raring to go, you're all excited about starting your business, and you might think that you're going to wake up one morning and you've got the perfect idea for what your business is going to be and what it's going to do and what it's going to look like. It isn't going to happen. Nobody starts a business that way. Nobody has one big idea, okay? So when you think about Katie Bulmer-Cook, who you heard about earlier in the week, people like Richard Branson, James Dyson, all these people who've created amazing businesses, they didn't have one big idea. They had dozens and dozens or hundreds and hundreds of ideas at the beginning, and they sifted through all of those ideas to find the one that was going to work. And then when they'd found that one idea for a product, they then had hundreds and hundreds of ideas for what it was going to look like, how it was going to work, how to solve the problems they came up with, what they were going to call it, how they were going to sell it, constantly coming up with lots and lots and lots and lots of ideas. Okay, so that's the one thing I want you to take away from this, is be all the time coming up with as many ideas as you can. Don't wait for one big idea to pop into your head. Okay, there's a company called, a big German company, although they operate all around the world, called Siemens, and they make everything from nuclear power stations to coffee machines. And they worked out a few years ago that, let's say they were going to launch a new product today, that would have started with a group of people in a room, maybe 3 or 4 years previously, coming up with some ideas for what that product should be. So how many ideas do you think they started with to have one good product that they could launch? 10? 50? 100? 6,000. Now just imagine what 6,000 ideas look like. Imagine a piece of paper with 6,000 ideas on it. Or imagine a wall with 6,000 post-it notes on it. That's what they started with. And they threw away 5,999 of them to get to that one that was the product that they wanted. And they were really happy to do that. They didn't see throwing away 5,000 ideas as being a bad thing. It was actually a good thing, because the more ideas you have, the more likely it is that the one idea is going to be in there somewhere. Okay? So don't stop with 1, don't stop with 10, don't stop with 50. At every stage of starting your business or developing your business, come up with as many ideas as you can. And then you've got more choice to find the one that is going to be the one that's going to work. Okay? Now, a good way to do that is a thing called brainstorming. You might have come across that term before, or mind, what's the other word? Anyway, lots of different terms for it. It basically just means getting together with the other people who are going to start your business and anyone else who's creative, anyone else who's got some good ideas, and just coming up with as many ideas as you can. You're not allowed to make any decisions about them. You're not allowed to say, oh, that's not a very good idea. Or the whole purpose is just to come up with as many ideas as you can. And the more crazy ones, the better. Okay? So at every stage, like I say, with developing your business, sit down, either on your own or with some other people, and just come up with as many ideas as you can and as many crazy ideas as you can. And like I say, that's the best way to make sure that there's going to be one in there that is going to be the one that you want. Now, my favorite way of doing it is a thing called reverse brainstorming, because that makes you extra creative. And what that means is that instead of trying to think of what would make a really good product, you try to think of what would make a really bad one. What is the worst product you could possibly think of, and what is the worst things about it that you can dream up? And then what you do is, because that gets you thinking in lots of different ways, and then what you do is you go back and you look at each of those crazy ideas and then try and flip it over to see if there's actually a good idea in there somewhere. So you might be thinking, I mentioned Siemens before, one of the other products they make is washing machines. So what they might have done in one of their ideas meetings, they might have thought, right, how can we come up with the worst washing machine in the world? What would that look like? And they might say, I don't know, it leaks water everywhere. In fact, no, it does more than that. It floods your kitchen with water every time you use it. What about, you can only fit one sock in it? That would be a rubbish washing machine, wouldn't it? What about it runs on coal, like a steam engine? You have to shovel coal into the back of it to heat the water up. It's so noisy that it sounds like a jet engine taking off every time it works. It hasn't got a door. The clothes all come out dirty. Right? These are all crazy ideas, and the more of them you have, the more creative you'll be. But then what they would do is say, right, okay, then let's think about, what was that first one I said? It leaks water everywhere. It floods the kitchen. Well, what about finding a way to, instead of the water from the washing machine just going down the drain, what about finding a way that you could reuse that water to clean your kitchen floor or to do something else? That might be quite a good thing to have on a washing machine, mightn't it? What was the other crazy thing I said? You can only fit one sock in it. Right? Well, that's a stupid idea, obviously, but let's turn that around and think, well, what about doing a small washing machine? Not the really big one that you have in your kitchen, but maybe one that sits on your bench, maybe for someone who lives on their own or someone who doesn't have lots of washing that they need to do. That's not a bad idea. Maybe that could be a good product for someone who makes washing machines. What was the other one? It's so loud, it sounds like a jet engine, right? Well, that's a really bad idea, but what's the opposite of that? Well, why don't we try and make a washing machine that's really, really quiet so that you can run it overnight and it's not going to wake the house up? You see? So we started with some really bad ideas, but it doesn't matter because they're still ideas and you can turn them around and turn them into something good. Okay? So in the same way that you don't expect to have one really good idea right at the beginning, don't worry about having rubbish ideas because they're still ideas, and you can look at those rubbish ideas or the ones that look rubbish and turn them over, and there might be a little spark in there of something that you can kind of go, you know what? That's not bad. I could use that. Okay? Now, I'm sure none of you are are planning to make a new kind of washing machine, but maybe, let's say, some of you have thought that you might want to make cupcakes for your business. That's a perfectly good idea. That's a perfectly good thing to do. But like I said at the beginning, don't just stop with, oh, we're going to make cupcakes and they're going to be like every other cupcake, because it's a bit too easy, really, isn't it? And it's not as much fun, and you probably won't sell as many as you could. So you might want to try doing that reverse brainstorming on cupcakes. So let's have a think. I don't know. What would be the worst kind of cupcake you could think of? Come on, let's see. Can you put something in the chat? Some ideas on what would be the worst cupcake ever? I don't know. It's so big it's the size of a car, right? What about, it's so small you can hardly see it. It's like the size of, I don't know, a pea.
It tastes awful.
It tastes awful. Thanks, Chris. It's not cooked properly. It's all soft and mushy inside. It costs.
It's really expensive.
It costs £100. Yeah, brilliant. And when you're having these mad ideas, make them really mad, right? Don't just say it's expensive. It costs £1 million, because the more crazy the idea, the more creative you become, and the more your brain starts spinning around with crazy ideas, and they're the ones that you want. Okay, so obviously they're bad ideas from Cupcake, but remember, this is reverse brainstorming. So let's turn it on its head. So we said, right, a cupcake that's the size of a car. Well, why not do a cupcake that's bigger than a normal one? Because it's to share. So it's not just for one person, it's a cupcake for 3 people. That's not a bad idea, is it? And I've never seen one of them before. And that might make people think, oh, that's a little bit different. I quite fancy one of them. What did we say? A cupcake that's the size of a pea. Well, you wouldn't want a cupcake that's small, but maybe you might want a smaller cupcake. Because I don't know about you, a cupcake, they're quite big, aren't they? Sometimes it's a bit too much to finish. So what about doing mini cupcakes? That's not a bad idea. What was the one you said, Chris? Tastes horrible.
Yeah, it tastes awful.
It's awful. It's got like really weird ingredients and flavors. Well, that's a bad thing, but you could maybe make that a good thing and say, well, why don't we come up with some different flavors? So instead of just chocolate or blueberry, well, why not mix things up and try things out and do a bit of experimenting? Because you might come up with an amazing combination of flavors. Chris, have you got one in mind?
Well, I'm reasonably certain that one of the crisp companies came up with hedgehog flavored crisps at one point.
Lovely.
I don't think it was a huge success because they're not still in the market, but it shows that even the really big companies can explore crazy ideas.
Yeah, and I bet they sold a lot of those because people just thought, oh, I wonder what hedgehog crisps taste like.
I'd have bought a packet.
Exactly, I think I did as well. So if your product idea, if your business is something that's been done before, well, you need to make it a little bit different. So if you're going to do cupcakes, don't just do any old cupcakes. Do big cupcakes or small cupcakes or cupcakes that have got a weird flavor. Okay, so I'm gonna end now and hand over to Chris. But what I want you to take away from this, well, 2 things. Don't wait for one big idea because it might never come. And the second thing is, the more ideas you have, the better. And even if you throw most of them away, which you will, it doesn't matter. That's a good thing. The more ideas you've got left that you don't use, the better, because that means you've been really creative, and it means you've tried really hard, and you're much more likely to come up with something that's going to work and people are going to want. Okay? Right, Chris, can I hand over to you now?
Yeah, absolutely. So good afternoon, everybody. As you'll see from my background, I love Lego, and I also love space. And that is the Legos version of the International Space Station. Now, going on from what Terry was saying, you believe me, NASA and the other companies that were involved, government agencies that were involved in the International Space Station, they didn't have just one big idea, although that is a pretty big idea. They actually had quite a lot of other ideas as well. For my part, I have set up quite a number of businesses. I'm currently either a director or an advisor or a investor in over 13 companies. But they're all within a particular sector, which is the high technology stuff. But when I first set up my first business, it was straight out of university. And quite honestly, the only reason I didn't set up a business before that was because I didn't know that I could. I know it doesn't sound like I'm from this area, but actually I went to Teesside University and I did a degree in industrial design because I loved the mix of art and science and mechanical engineering and problem solving. And a lot about running a business, starting a business, and so on is problem solving. You don't have to be brilliant. You don't have to be perfect. But it's helpful if you've got lots of ideas. And that's one of the things that I do really, really well. I've got lots of ideas floating around up here all the time and trying to sort of decide what is the best one. I mean, when I started my first business, it was a frightening thing, actually, because you never know where the money's going to come from. You're always questioning whether you've got things right. And when I first started, I made the wrong assumption that I had to be brilliant at everything. Well, nobody's brilliant at everything, not even me. You have to find other people that are better than you at so many things. Actually, I'm going to turn the background off because one of the things that it occurred to me when I was looking at what it takes to come up with a really good idea and what it takes to run a business is that actually you need to be capable of wearing lots of hats. Now, the first hat you have to wear is the one that says you can't afford to take yourself too seriously. So when you're thinking about ideas, try and think of some really wacky ones. Try and think about ones, yes, I know it makes me look like a wizard, I know. Try and make ideas that are daft, things that, as Terry was saying, don't really make sense. And if you find that you're stuck for ideas, if you find that you're struggling to come up with ideas, forget about trying to come up with sensible ideas. Go for a few daft ones. You know it makes sense. Then, of course, when you're trying to build the company, then you need to perhaps be reasonably good at, I don't know, engineering, like Isambard Kingdom Brunel. Now, he was a brilliant engineer who's also a fantastic businessman. He made and raised vast amounts of money. But importantly, he didn't try and do it all himself. He actually hired a lot of really, really talented people to help him. So sometimes you have to be the engineer. Sometimes you have to think the really big thoughts and work out how they're going to work. Equally, sometimes it's quite important to explore the possibilities and to actually go out and see what you can find out there that other people have done or things that people haven't already discovered. And so sometimes you have to wear that hat where you're going out exploring what the marketplace will accept. Who are your customers? What will they buy? Are there enough customers? Are you dealing in a niche that is too small or just right? You know, go out and explore. And again, if you're having problems coming up with ideas, take a walk, have a look, see what other people are doing. Plagiarism is something that you want to avoid. Now, plagiarism is where you steal other people's ideas, but getting inspiration from other people's ideas is actually a really good way of doing business. Now, there are, of course, lots of other hats that you can wear and should wear, one of which is going out and hunting for new business. I don't recommend that you shoot them, but you know, every so often it's really good to go out and hunt for new business, stalking the opposition, seeing what they're doing, and actually making use of that. I suppose all of this comes down to, you know, why? Why run your own business? Why take the risk? And the answer to that is because you have found that you enjoy it. You found that you've got an idea, or indeed many ideas, and the only way to actually see them come into reality is for you to step up and do it. But when you're going to step up and do it, make sure you've got a team behind you to help. It's difficult. It's hard work. Don't go into business. And I know you're just starting out in business now, looking at things that you can do in the school as a challenge. But some of you will, as you grow up, want to actually go on and do more businesses. As I say, I've done more than one myself. And that can be hard work. Sometimes, and I'm not going to put this one on, but sometimes you've got to be prepared to defend your own corner. And it's a bit of a battle. Actually, I will put it on. There we go. So sometimes, not sure you can hear that, sometimes you've got to be prepared to really stand your ground. And if you're not prepared to defend your ideas, then either you need to find somebody that believes in your idea as much as you do and actually get them to defend your idea, because not everybody can step up and actually be the spokesperson for a company. Or you recognize that your idea is not the right one and you go back and you find an idea that is the right one. It's so important to have a team working with you. No one person can do everything. So you will have people that can stand up in front of anybody and say anything, so long as they believe in it. You also need people that are good at maths, people that are good at English, good at marketing, but it's the ideas. Come up with as many ideas as you can and don't be afraid of failure. Not every business that I've started has been a success. There have been some that have failed. And it can be a really expensive mistake, but that's okay, because the important thing there really is to learn from your mistakes. We grow by making mistakes. If you never make a mistake, you'll never grow. You'll never learn. So embrace making mistakes. Don't be afraid of it. Just make sure that you learn from it. I've got a question here. So what if your business doesn't take off and it's not successful? How would you take care of that? It's hard. It's one of those things where at some point you have to realize that you have to cut your losses. You have to be open with people. You have to be honest. Occasionally you have to apologize because you've got it wrong. But if you're open and you're honest and you explain why things have gone wrong, most people are prepared to give you a second chance. After all, we've all had second chances in our lives, but it can be expensive. And having made that first mistake or that first error, don't think that's it. It isn't. That's just the beginning. Even if somebody says to you, you're no good. Even if somebody says to you, you won't succeed. What you've got to do is you've got to go back and say, actually, do you know what? This was just one mistake. It was one idea. It was one idea out of 6,000 ideas. It didn't work. Guess what? I've got another 5,999 ideas to go back to and try again. Which of them is going to be the good idea? Thomas Edison, when he invented the light bulb, he didn't get it right first time. He said that every failure he made was just another step to success. He had 900 failures and one success. Without those failures, he wouldn't have got the success. So don't take, sorry, Terry, you're on mute. Don't take failure as being wrong. It isn't. Terry?
I was just going to answer one of the other questions there. Is that okay, Chris? Could I?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Although what I am going to do is disagree with you about Thomas Edison, because as we all know, it was Joseph Swan.
Oh, of course.
Who invented the light bulb. Come on, Chris.
I know.
No, I was just going to say, Claire, have we got time just to answer one quick question? Is that okay?
We've got quite a bit of time. Yeah.
All right. So one of the questions there was, is it easier to sell multiple things or start one item and add more as you go along? What I'm going to say is, first of all, is it easier? None of it's going to be easy.
No.
If it's easy, you're doing it wrong. okay? It's not meant to be easy. It's meant to be really, really hard. Good fun, but it's meant to be hard. So forget the word easy, all right? If you're finding it easy, try a bit harder. But I would say that I think starting with one thing is going to be enough of a challenge, because you want to make sure you get it right. You want to put all your energy into that one thing. You want to make that thing absolutely perfect. And then, as I said before, you want to keep improving that one thing by having lots and lots of ideas and changing it and developing it and growing it. So that's just the one. So that doing one thing well, I think is going to be enough. And then once you've got that where you want it to be, and once you've got the hang of that, then start thinking about other things. There could be things that are completely different. There could be slightly different versions of your original product, but definitely start with one thing, get that absolutely perfect, get that absolutely right, and then start thinking about doing other things, because it is going to be hard work.
Yeah, I mean, Terry, if I can pick up on that. So for this challenge, absolutely, one thing, just one thing. It's going to be hard enough doing one thing without doing lots of others. But I have two rules that I normally follow when doing business. The first one is focus. And you might want to write this down, because focus stands for follow one course until successful. So choose your idea and follow that idea until it's successful, or you can prove that it isn't successful. And then the other thing that I have is what I call the 70-20-10 rule. Most people have heard of the 80-20 rule. The 70-20-10 rule is 70% of your focus, your activity, your effort should be on that one thing that you're trying to achieve. 20% of your energy, your focus, your ideas should be on investigating the next thing that you want to develop as a business. And that 10% is looking way into the future. What's the really big ideas that are coming up that you can actually take on board and make eventually a new business out of, bring them into the 20%, eventually bring them into the 70%, all the time growing your business. I mean, when I started my business, my first business, it was straight out of university. I didn't know any of this. And I was, 22 when I first started my first business. And as I say, I think had I realized I could run businesses before then, I would have done. But that's because I've got a lot of ideas, and I actually believe that most of my ideas are brilliant. Of course they are. You know, I'm brilliant. Why wouldn't I be? Yeah, it took me a long time to learn those rules about focus, rather than being a magpie and going off and investigating everything all the time. Great to have loads of ideas, but narrow them down into that focus of one thing that you're trying to deliver.
So Chris, if you were designing or had a cake business, and you've got your 70-20-10 rule, I guess that would mean in a week you'd spend 3.5 days focusing on your current range of cakes.
Yep.
You'd spend a day and a half looking at, well, what we're going to do next, what we're going to do in a month's time, or 3 months time.
What are we going to do for Easter? What are we going to do for Christmas? What are we going to do for Mother's Day?
Yeah, exactly. And then maybe half a day just coming up with crazy things like, how do we make our cakes luminous, or I don't know, whatever.
How do you make cakes that will bake in space? That's a real biggie.
Yeah. So if any of you out there have got some ideas on how to make cakes in space, then Chris would be really interested, I'm sure.
We've got a question here. Has someone ever told you, and I think this is to both of you, has someone ever told you that you won't succeed? And was it really hard to just keep going when you had people saying that to you?
Yes, absolutely. So one of the things, I have dyslexia. I have dyslexia and I have dysmenorrhea. I swap numbers around. Never give me a string of numbers to remember, because I'll probably remember all the numbers, but they really won't be in the right order. But yes, because I had this was never diagnosed at school because dyslexia didn't exist when I was growing up in school. It did, of course, but nobody recognized it. So basically I was the thickie. And because I was the thickie, there was no way I was ever going to make a go of anything. There was no way I was going to succeed at anything other than perhaps digging ditches, which was a job that I did for a while, or pulling pints, which was a great job that I did for a while. But there was no way I was ever going to go to university. But I did. You know, even if you have got things like dyslexia or whatever, it's not a reason. It's not an excuse. It's not an excuse for failure. It's a reason to be better than anybody else and to actually prove everybody else wrong. They say you're not going to succeed. I'll tell you what, I flipping well am.
For me, Claire, to answer that same question, I've been quite lucky in that no one's ever told me I won't succeed, but actually the only person that has told me that is myself. And even now, I still think, oh, I'm not sure I could do that. I'm not sure I'll be any good at that. And I'm always wrong. And I'm really glad that I'm always wrong. It doesn't stop it happening. I still think to myself when I'm going to do something new, or I'm not sure I'll be able to manage that. But I'm always wrong. And that's true for most people, I think. So for you guys out there, if you get that, if someone else tells you you're not going to succeed, like Chris said, just ignore them. In fact, don't ignore them. Use it to be even more determined that you are going to succeed and prove them wrong, because they are wrong. Anyone who tells you that is completely wrong. But also, if you get the little voice whispering in your ear from yourself, telling you you're not going to succeed, just ignore it, because it's a lie, because you will. Because sometimes the only thing that's stopping you from succeeding is yourself. And it's quite easy to get rid of that.
Yeah.
So just do it.
We all occasionally suffer from what's known as imposter syndrome. And that is your own brain telling you that actually you don't know what you're doing. You're not good enough. I mean, who are you to say that what you've got is better than anybody else? Actually, I find that, as Terry says, far more difficult to deal with than somebody outside telling me I'm stupid, I'm useless, I won't succeed. Somebody outside tells me that, I put my armor on and I get fighting. If it's inside, it's far more difficult to actually dig yourself up and say, actually, come on. It gets slightly easier with age, because you can look back and you can look at your history and your career and the businesses that you've started and go, actually, do you know what? I've not done too badly here. I probably do know what I'm talking about. But it still happens, particularly at night. You lie in bed and you go, actually, what the heck am I doing? But yes, you know, it happens.
And it happens to lots of people, you know, even the Richard Bransons and the Alan Sugars of the world, you know, they still have that little, you know, they do, you know, they still have that little voice in their head saying, oh, you know, you really should be doing this. But as you say, Chris, as you get older, it's sort of, it becomes a bit easier to sort of cut that voice down. Another question is really about marketing. So what's the easiest way to promote your business? I don't know who wants to take that question.
I'll start. The easiest way is to tell everybody. Quite honestly, tell your friends, tell your family, tell your neighbor's dog, you know, tell everybody about what you're doing. If you're excited about it, which you should be, because being in business is exciting, it's terrifying, but it's also exciting. You want everybody to know. So tell everybody, you know, your family, because your family will believe in you. That's the best way to market your business. Tell people. If you don't tell people what you're doing, nobody's going to know. There used to be a saying, which is blowing your own horn. Quite honestly, if you're not prepared to blow your own horn, nobody's going to blow it for you. So you really do have to get out there and actually use social media, use Twitter, and you know, Facebook and LinkedIn and anything else that you've got there as social media. But more importantly, just talk to your family. Get your mum and dad to help you. Get your uncle to help you, or your aunt, your brother, your sister, because you know what? They'll be interested as well. They'll want to help you, I'm sure.
The other thing, if I could chip in, because actually it links to another question, which is it important to do a lot of research before you start your business? So as well as, like Chris said, telling everyone, it's also important to ask everyone. Ask people what they want. You might have decided, I'm going to do this, which is great. It's a good start. But the more people you ask, the better your product or your service will be, because you'll then find out what they really want, or you might find out things that you hadn't thought of that give you a little bit of difference or a little extra thing that you can add. So tell everyone, but also when you're telling them, ask them as well. So when you're saying, I've got this brilliant thing, do you want to buy it? Also say, but how could I make it better? You know, what other things would you like? Would you like it a different color? Would you like it to taste differently? Would you like it whatever? So ask them at the same time.
Yeah, and I think that picks up on the point of the research. It is really important, because you might come up with the most wonderful idea, you know, and then you start putting lots of effort and time and money into that idea, and then you realize actually nobody wants it. So that research is really, really important. And that word of mouth, you know, that sort of talking about your idea, you know, tell everyone, because somebody hopefully will want to buy what you're offering. So great.
There's that last question there. Somebody just said, does it matter how old you are? For all of you watching, you are the perfect age to start a business, right? And don't let anyone tell you otherwise. You're the perfect age. If you read about, you think of anyone who you can think of who's famous for starting a business or for being successful, they all started when they were 9, 10, 11. That's when they started. They weren't rich and famous then, but that's when it started. So you are all the perfect age to start.
Well, that explains why I'm not rich and famous then. I started too late.
That's
that
it.
could be it, Chris. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, actually, you know, age doesn't really matter that much. The team matters. Okay. Having the right team with the right skills, the right support. A team in a business eventually becomes almost like a family. So yeah, the age is not really the deciding factor. I mean, I'm quite happy to set up another business now, and I'm so old, I'm nearly dead. The fact that age is not really an issue, particularly in this day and age, age is not an issue at all. It's about the team that you're working with.
Yeah, I think we've just got a few more questions, but there's one that keeps coming into the chat. What if you can't think of a business? What if you're really sort of struggling and you can't come up with any ideas and nobody's helping you and you've done your research? You know, because these students do have to come up with an idea. What's your advice for that?
I think you can always, I mean, Chris talked about not pinching somebody else's ideas. We can always improve on someone else's idea. So if you see a business out there, or you know, whatever it might be, then there's no harm in you thinking, okay, well, that's a starting point, but how can I make it better? Lots of really successful businesses started because someone saw an existing product and thought, I could do better than that. I could make a much better version of that, make it fancier or cheaper or lighter or faster or whatever it might be. So don't think that the thing you come up with has to be completely unique. It just has to be special. And the starting point could be something that's already out there, but you make it special, you make it different, you make it your own. And that can be just as successful, if not more.
Absolutely, Terry. I mean, for example, one of the businesses that I had, we actually made machines to do sliced bread. Now, sliced bread has been going for a long time. You know, there's nothing better than sliced bread, but we designed a better bread slicer to make that sliced bread. It's the old thing of the better mousetrap. That's a fantastic thing. Actually, that's a real challenge, to design a better mousetrap. There are ideas everywhere you look. And if you really are stuck, as I say, take a break, go for a walk, see what's happening, see what other people are doing, have a browse on the internet for ideas. Don't get stuck down a rabbit hole, although maybe designing a better rabbit hole, I don't know. It's one of those things where there's always ideas. They're not necessarily good ones. So go with the ideas that you've got. Don't be afraid, just write them down, even if they sound really stupid. And again, going back to this one, don't be afraid to appear daft. Write down all the ideas that you've got, even if they're really stupid ones, because you know what? Even one of those stupid ideas might just have that kernel of genius in it.
And sometimes a good idea is something that starts with something that really gets on your nerves. Something that it really annoys you, or it makes you really angry, or maybe your phone charger cable keeps getting tangled up, or you're eating a chalk ice and it all dribbles down your hand, or just those silly little things that really annoy you. Your chances are they annoy everyone, not just you. So if you can come up with a really good solution to that thing, so your new business, your new product doesn't have to be some lovely, bright, shiny thing that makes everyone happy and creates some wonderful things. It could be
a better internet signal.
It could be.
You just froze for a second there, Terry, but we got the point.
Did you get the gist?
No. I got the gist. I think it's problem solving, isn't it? And you're quite right. There's things that irritate you in your life, and you think, oh, if only I had this, or if only this did that. And I think it's a really good place to start. Just finally, we've still got a few questions coming in, but I think an important one for the young people is what inspired you both, or who inspired you? I think that's important.
Oh, that's easy for me. So what inspired me was I was allowed to stay up to watch the first moon landings. And that really inspired me to want to do stuff in space. Hey, I still want to be a spaceman. I really do. Some people would say I am a complete spaceman, but I do. I want to be an astronaut, and that's inspired me. The people that inspired me, and Richard Branson, what an inspiration. Read his story. It's fantastic. In my childhood, I was inspired by Albert Einstein. I was inspired by Alexander the Great. People that had really gone out there and done the whole let's explore, let's design and make something that's better. And funnily enough, people that were renowned for daydreaming, because I used to do an awful lot of that. And people always used to tell me, well, you're just a daydreamer. You'll never come to anything. What's the point in daydreaming? Well, quite simply, it's where I get my best ideas. Daydreaming, fantastic place to get ideas.
Terry?
I think for me, it's not so much what inspired me, but I think I just did the things that I loved. So I loved science, even when I was younger than you guys, and I just kept being interested in it. And so when it came time to choose subjects, I chose science subjects because I loved them. And then when I went to do my A levels, I picked science subjects because I really enjoyed them. And I found out that I really liked physics. I know that's a bit weird, but I do. And so I did a physics degree, and I had no idea why. I didn't have a big plan in mind, but I loved it. So I thought, well, I'm going to do something that I love. And there's nothing wrong with choosing things you love. In fact, it's the best thing you can do, because you're much better finding a career or a business in something that you love than in something that you hate, because there's nothing worse than doing a job you hate.
Yeah.
So I just kept following that. And so I did a physics degree, and then I got a job in a big company that you probably haven't heard of, but that was a very big company at the time. And I got to play with lasers and x-rays and had a lab full of amazing stuff. And it was brilliant fun. It was really important, but it was really good fun, and I loved it. And I've just carried on doing that. So don't think that the thing that you decide to do at your age is going to be the thing you're going to do for the rest of your life. But it's a really good place to start, is to choose something you love, because you never know where you might end up. But it's probably going to be something else that you love, that's the really important thing.
I completely agree, Terry. They do say that if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. And actually doing what I love has taken me around the world. I've been extraordinarily fortunate to have worked all around the world because of it. So yeah, do what you love.
Fantastic. We're just going to sneak one last question in. So what's the one important thing to know before starting your business?
You can't please all the people all the time. You will have people that hate you, particularly if you're successful at what you're doing, because people will be envious of you. But you can please some of the people all of the time, and that means you're doing it right. So yeah, you will have haters, but you will also have people that absolutely love what you're doing.
Great.
I think for me, it's just to keep doing new things all the time. Keep finding new ways to do things, because even when you found the perfect way to do something, whether that's making a cake or washing a car, there'll always be a slightly better way to do it. So keep constantly trying to find better ways, new ways, different ways to do whatever you're doing. Don't stop innovating, which means doing new things. Don't stop, because that's what will make you successful.
Fantastic. We've got some children that are having to go for a lesson now. But I just wanted to say thank you so much to you both. That's really been very insightful, and I've certainly learned a few things as well this afternoon. So thank you for talking to the children and the teachers this afternoon. Good luck to all of you out there. We can't wait to see some of the ideas. Terry and Chris will be mentoring some of the schools, so you may well see Terry and Chris again in some shape or form, supporting your school in the next few months as you come up with your business ideas. And I think it's just a good luck, and thank you for everyone that's joined us this afternoon.